Okay, it is, or hello internet, hello future me. It is Saturday, 4th of February 2024, 6 p.m., 6:09 p.m. So today I'm gonna try to talk about, recap and think of which movies were the best. But starting off, uh, I watched more of Krapopolis. I think there's 13 episodes, but I just watched those free on YouTube. And I can only find until 12, so I haven't watched all of them. Um, the thing is, the episodes are, I don't know, it's engaging. It has an interesting story. Um, but it's not, you know, there's not much of that punch. But I really liked this episode, I think 11, where the Hydra, a Hydra, I guess, functions as internet and social media or phone, where the Hydra is able to, regrow when the head's cut off, and basically the Hydra splits into so many heads, and each head functions as like a portal for communication. So someone could talk to one head and ask to tell another person somewhere in the city to do to or like a phone. Someone would say something like hi to a fuck my words. So to a Hydra head, someone might say, "Can you say hi to person B?" And then person B with a Hydra head would receive hi from person A through the Hydra head, and they can communicate. And the Hydra would also like tell the people like how many likes they're getting, how many like impressions, like positive impressions they're getting, or at one point the king or emperor, ruler is like read the situation, in other words, like sort of lie and give information that would make the receiver feel good. So it's like how social media, tries to feed your ego, sort of, and just shows you what you want to see. It was a very interesting way of using Hydra in a show about building society, because the whole show is the premise is building society, but it's reflection or critical a gentle critical analysis of society, right? So it's the funny thing is it's ancient society, but it's a very modern tale. And then the whole episode, it just felt more Dan Harmon. Um, the humor, that sort of metaphor, it was kind of also the currency one, the one after that was pretty alright as well. Um, yeah, and then the post credits for both, especially the Hydra one, where it just starts going on random ongoing story. It's hard to explain, but it's like the story just keeps going on and on like a ramble. That's very Harmon-esque. Um, I realize he does that in Harmontown as well, where he just like as his sort of humor where it just keeps going with like no end in sight of like rambling. I'm really attracted to that. Sometimes it's humor, sometimes it's a weird meta commentary masked in a lot of weird meandering uh, expression. Um, but yeah, but Crapopolis, it's like there's nothing else to watch, so I don't mind watching. But yeah, I don't know. Not like that amazing of a show. But anyways, so I have the list of films right in front of me. Um, so Monday, I watched My Imaginary, theme-based compilation of 4 films, all Filme Feliz, Lose Voice Toolkit, Stereo, Water Hazard. So starting off, Lose Voice Toolkit, I'm gonna just put an X over it. It's experimental, it's interesting to, you know, see how people, or in this case children, communicate without using vocalization. Um, but I just felt it, for something experimental, it doesn't seem sciencey, and I don't mean it in the sense that the film is too artistic. Um, for example, the communication is substituted by sound effects, like post-production sound effects, post-production or post-filming sound effects, or um, it was weird because communication, there is science behind it. It's psychology. It's sociology. It's like social contracts. There are certain things that are established that transcends thinking of um, what happens if we're missing vocal communication. There's already so much to it, but it just felt like it was trying to discover something that wasn't there by making it artistic, if that makes sense. I just I don't know. It wasn't for me. Um oh, Film Feliz, interesting. I still think about Friends, Film, and Death as equal. Um it's kind of a, I can't even say it's an easygoing, there's no like major conflict, so it's kind of easygoing, but the film is done in a way to not be like that comforting, because there's horror elements, but at the same time it's it's really weird because the way it's done, it doesn't create like some uncomfort, but you can't say it's feel good. The director threaded a really interesting line between comfort and discomfort without feeling either of them. So in that sense, it's really interesting. It really reflects the idea of seeing something completely unconnected, Friends, Film, and Death, seem connected through that. It's a very undescribable quality. Stereo, a way more explicit, understandable film. I like it. Um, I think what really shines is also the actor, the kid actor, and there's a nice sort of humor which all the other films I haven't seen much humor. Just because something is short, something might be a bit different doesn't mean they have to remove humor. Although I understand that humor is such a common ground element that probably sort of strays away from experimental indie. It's a very communicable element, if that makes sense, in humor. Um, but I liked it. And it shows, a retrospect of the director's childhood. Um, it's not something that profound, per se, but it's interesting. It's a bit melancholic, but also fun and cute. And then Water Hazard. I never really understood the metaphor or the symbol of water. There was a lot of representation of water, like a big motif. I guess maybe it's about changing. Yeah, actually, that kind of makes sense. Water. um, it was a very interesting film about transitioning. Um, Not something I've really seen before. Also, a lot of transsexual representation in media, content media, is male to female. I don't really see female to male. And then it's done it in sort of a light, I don't want to say lighthearted, but it's not depressing. It's not stress. There is a bit of stress, but it's not stressful. There is a sister that's supportive. Uh, I don't know, he, before transitioning, I guess the child, um, the child sees their future, and it ends on a very positive note and kind of wholesome. I know the director said it's the child imagining their future, but I also like to see it as uh, the future is the present. The guy who's been done with transitioning is looking back at their childhood and kind of brings about this like wholesomeness I like. So other than Lou's Voice Toolkit, I it's hard to say. Um, I guess Oh Film Feliz is definitely the most unique because does it talks about death is still a very common theme throughout the festival, but the way it's done and the sensation it is able to execute is just so different. So I really like O Film Feliz, but Water Hazard is I would say close second. So after that, on Monday I also watched Tiger Shark Competition. I came here for Crazy Lotus, which was from Thailand, which was this wacky shit. And when the director was describing his film, it made even less sense. And what really I think about is him talking about how the film was showing the fifth dimension, because we're living in the fourth dimension or something. I was trying to show beyond that, but we don't live in the fourth dimension. We live in the third dimension. So that, and then, like, as much as maybe the film, like, the unhingedness is very attractive, and I don't know how much the unhingedness is actually forced. But I think this is the problem, You go for uniqueness and creativity at the expense of communication. And I think this film is an example of that. it's not just that the conception of the director was beyond. It's that the way the beyondness is executed. There's way too many uh, special terminologies unique to that film, which never gets explained. And the thing is, during the Q&A, he briefly explains it, but it's not enough. It's also like, I wish I had a little guide paper in front of me that provides all the definitions. Um, Maybe it would have been nicer if I could slowly consume this film. It's not a film I could just watch with other films in an hour. Um, but then, even then, after that, I don't know if that film has substance in terms of how much it can communicate to me, to the audience. Um, uh, it's hard to say. Crazy Lotus. Um, yeah. And then 3 megawatts. WH is watts, right? What? Megawatt hour. 3 megawatt hour. I think that's the value of how much a human needs in their day or year or life. I don't know. This is the energy one. Um, the energy one, it's not. It's a very interesting concept to focus on energy or electrical energy and existence and bound it with spirituality. But I feel this is another example of art trying to get into science but failing miserably. It there's still focus on spirituality, which this becomes really subjective because, well, what I'm trying to say here is it goes against my values from a biologist's perspective, where there's a focus on spirituality, which is anti-science to me. There's no thing as spirituality. That's all a manifestation of our subjective world. And then it talks about how, this is very technical, but at one point it talks about how energy, like megawatts per hours, or watts is the only quantified energy through our human life, which is not true. Calories. There's probably other stuff. Joules. You could probably calculate joules for something throughout life. Or grams, just focusing on protein, grams. So it's an interesting film, but also it's another film where there's a lot of voiceovers. And but at least it's the protagonist, is like mind. It's not just some scenic still shot with some ambience and voiceover. I don't like that anymore. And then we had Los Dos Lados de la Tortuga. This is about tortoises in Galapagos. I didn't like this one because it just felt the experimentalness seemed forced. What does Lados mean? Well, Spanish sides. The two sides of the tortoise, or Tortuga's turtle, but it was about tortoises. But I guess tortoises are turtles. I don't even remember what the two side was. And it was probably about how humans affect nature and negatively, and just Um, I think it was also, oh yeah, there was a whole idea like tortoises were living for generations, for 100 years, and it only took like a few years after human came to Galapagos to kind of destroy that lineages of tortoises. Um, yeah, cool, I guess. Just my perspective on ecology is there's a little determinist aspect to it. I feel where um, humans' destruction is part of the process. You know, it's just another form of extinction, which humans would probably be part of it, but the entirety of species is probably not going to be destroyed. The extinction is probably just going to lead to new set of biodiversity in the future, which has always been the case. So these ideas about um, the guilt or the sadness or attention for seeing human destroy specific species doesn't really tell me anything. Um, because all these destruction it comes back down to our extinction. In that sense, it's fine. But if you're gonna mask it with trying to show empathy towards some species, which a set of species is not one entity, anyways. Um, it, it's it's dumb. I think it's dumb. It's very unscientist. It's just emotional gibberish. And then the film was forced. I didn't like it. Uh, Now I think conceptually the Leica Sick Yellow is probably the most interesting. This is the found footage one. Um, so this was about the how people lived right before the war, or like at the start of the war. Um, Fascinating. It just uh, Kosovo. Okay, so Kosovo, there was a war. I think 1980s or something. Um, this is just me being completely unempathetic, but I don't know the war. I So it's hard for me to care, and I it just there's so many death and destruction, so many forms throughout the world. I can't really be bothered with trying to like show compassion or care for all of them. You know, I can only care for ones that are related to me or near me. Um, so conceptually interesting, um, but from my subjective, uncompassionate perspective, it just doesn't strike me too much. And the unfortunate thing is, the engagement kind of fell off. Um, I think this is a problem with found footages because it's very difficult to provide because the tools you have are based on what's already created, so it's harder to have control. So I don't know, or the tools aren't made to be engaging to random people to begin with, but it's made in a way to be engaging to random, like a different target audience other than the family members within the film. Um, so for me, it fell off a bit on the engagement, and also it was a lot of repeated footages because I think it's kind of limited. Well, I don't know. There was a lot of repeated scenes. Um, but the whole concept kind of interesting. I would say that's still probably the most interesting Um, I guess second Crazy Lotus, and then third megawatts per hour, 3 megawatts per hour, and then the turtle one, big X. And then that night, I watched a Spoiling Rain, Hana Takushi. Um, I mean, just a good film overall. Uh, it's a very interesting concept of two guys who start off kind of from a bad note, but they talk about their past relationship, and turns out, they both had the same ex, and then that ex died, and the ex was cheating and committed suicide with the what do you call it? With the cheatee, which was also like one of the protagonists is like very close friend. Um, and it's interesting because the you know the ex-girlfriend is a genuine person who seems like a good person. But you can see how she kind of falls into depression, like especially after miscarriage, and then the sad part about she starts cheating, and then the protagonist just is apathetic, like, oh, you're cheating with him, huh? And then looking back, talking to the other guy, he's like, I wish I hit her hard. I wish I was like mad at her. Maybe that would have stopped her from killing herself. Um, Spoiling Rain. What was Spoiling Rain? Like the whole proverb of Spoiling Rain just means like too much of a good thing could be bad. I think that's what it is. Or even something beautiful can rot if there's too much of it. Too much of its, yeah, something good can be bad, if my interpretation is correct. It's like Troy eating that big chocolate cookie, but way more depressing. The ending was a bit confusing. It's, yeah. Yeah. The thing is, I don't really know what was the flower and what was the rain in the film, which is like the most crucial thing. I haven't really thought about it. Um, Maybe love is the rain, the relationship is a flower. Um, it's really unfortunate that I don't know. Um, but it's generally a good movie. But then I understand the unfair advantage that this film gets like 2 hours or something, compared to the other shorts. And it's made to be way more coherent. It's not an experimental film. And I do like experimental stuff, but at the end of the day, something like this makes, something that makes more sense is going to be easier to penetrate my emotions, because I understand what's going on. And it is usually trying to penetrate my emotion. Like, experimental films are not necessarily trying to do that. That saying, though, it it's almost like I shouldn't compare these films, but I would, because it's like films I watch. I want to try to make like an overall comparison. So this is for me to think about the difference between experimental and more conventional narrative films. And I guess in that, if I'm really thinking about it, still this more conventional narrative film does, kind of take the higher spot. But anyways, the next day I watched King Baby. I mean, I think I said everything about this. The film itself, on a surface level, is really, really good. The actors are great. The setting, the execution is just really good. Like, I kind of want to watch the film again, but then what makes me kind of hate the film and not want to watch again is the overall concept, which is male hate and ultimately self-hate, because the directors are both male. Is it is a reflection of this zeitgeist I have recognized, especially through my college, through like taking a lot of humanities courses. There's so much emphasis on, fuck all these guys. And I don't know. I mean, I I kind of get where the sentiment is coming from. There are problems with um yeah. There's problems with anything. And it just seems like this is such a big narrative and discourse right now to have so much negativity towards men, and is a little upsetting for me. The film is really good, so I'm so torn. And also because it's a feature, but the way it's executed is a bit more experimental because it's within a very small space, and it's a story about two guys in this like delusion, um, where basically both of them are villains, villains of themselves, villains of each other. It's really good at showing delusion and being within your own world. It's and the costume design. It's very. I really like it. It has that like handmadeness, you know. And it's like a constant reminder that these two guys were just random guys who started pretend and then somehow ended up going into this delusional world. And it sounds ridiculous, but it's also a little realistic because I know how. There's like a story about how Colt was made within like a few weeks, a few months, where people start sacrificing themselves. It was like a whole thing. Delusion is a very common thing. It's everywhere. It's one of the biggest things in society. What builds society, you know. Because delusion is just projection of reality, but is labeled as negative. Because technically every perception of reality is an illusion. So, um, in that sense, this film is really good, but just the self-hate, the men hate is just upsetting. Okay. And then now we get to Delirium. This is the one I watched the next day. So, I think this for there was Coral and Dreams, Spirits of the Black Leaves, and Storyboard Suli. Probably this compilation screening was the best one out of the rest, I think. Or maybe the first one. What do you call it? What was it called? My Imaginary. That might be close first, second. It started off with Storyboard Suli, which is, the premise is interesting. The whole story is presented through a storyboard, so there's no animation. It's like drawings with notes in a box, and it's mostly black and white. And it starts off by feeling like it's a storyboard, but as the story progresses, you get pulled into it, and somehow you kind of see the story as it is. I think that's a very cool, and it seems easily executed, but it's probably something really hard to pull off. The story itself is a bit surreal, but then it almost sounds like it just is about ecology at the end. I'm not sure. I don't think it's necessarily that the case. It's it was surprisingly surreal. I did not expect that, but I do not know what the story was really trying to say. And I guess the problem is on my part, but you know, what can I do? The other one was Spirits of the Black Leaves. This was also interesting. It was about this tribes that were sort of is gentrified the word, being taken, like pulled, absorbed into society in Thailand, I believe. And then I think the protagonist has a sort of background from the tribe, but she is forced to be modernized. And then but probably she is like second, third, fourth generation. But there's that unconscious level of being part of that tribe, and she probably has anxiety that can't be explained because of that. And she gets anxiety attacks. So I assume that's why the story is set in the countryside with her, where she's just living with her grandma. I assume she has anxiety problems, where she had to take a back and live with her grandma for a while. That's my assumption. It's an interesting film. It's a bit melancholic, but it's almost feel good as well, because it presents the peaceful tranquility of the countryside, or the setting they're in. I do remember what was really confusing was at the end, the camera pans back to show the lighting from the film. It goes full fourth wall break. I didn't get that. But, you know, meta is a common thing to talk about, I guess. Meta. But I can't think of anyone else than Dan Harmon who can pull off meta well, you know. So many meta commentaries are done for the sake of being meta. Like the way Dan Harmon does it's the meta is honest. That's the thing with Dan Harmon. It's honest. It's not just an artistic choice. It's being introspective. It's being really critical of yourself, you know. And yeah, I didn't get the last part of Spirits of the Black Leaves. I don't even know the title. That's the thing with a lot of these films. I don't really go more in depth. Like I don't understand the title. Like the next one, Coral. I don't understand Coral as well. Although aesthetically I enjoyed it. I'm surprised it's from United States actually. But yeah. Because also I need to think about how the films are not necessarily intentionally built off of a concept. And the art could come before the concept. That's kind of what I feel with Coral. I could be wrong though. But I enjoyed it from an aesthetic level, from a sort of emotion that I felt from the aesthetic. And then In Dreams, definitely my favorite one out of all this. I love the animation, the exploration of just different thoughts, and then existence, just all meshed into this weird dreamscape, you know. There's probably more to it, but again, that's my takeaway. It's an exploration of thoughts that people think about. I liked it. So it would be In Dreams, Coral. And then Spirit and Storyboard is close tie. Maybe Spirit's a bit better than Storyboard. And then I think the day after I watched Tiger Short Competition 3. This was probably the worst compilations I watched. Flower Show, I Would Rather Be a Stone, Potencia a Deriva, and Void. The first three I just mentioned, it just lacked too much of engagement. I Would Rather Be a Stone, I just fell asleep. Yeah, they talk about their ancestry, ancestresses. Is that like female ancestry? Okay, so female ancestry. Yeah, female ancestry. So I Would Rather Be a Stone, the description is a caring cinematic homage to the filmmaker's ancestresses at the neglected region of their origin. The thing about sort of metaphoric, cryptic expression is that you need to understand the reference, right? And I mean, maybe did a good job and the engagement was just bad, but when it's talking about something like regional, culturally isolated, it's even harder to understand the reference the cryptic message is trying to convey. And overall, like, the tone of the film was so um, gray, like emotionally gray. It's not sad, but it's just too calming. It's my dinner with Andre. I just cannot watch it without falling asleep. It's like that. Um, Same for Potencia a Deriva. Like, I get the significance of this film being that it was from someone who was exiled from Brazil and lived in LA and made an effort to make film, and it's like a found footage compilation of that person. But there was voiceovers, there's music. I feel that maybe it should have been executed another way. It's the same problem with I Would Rather Be a Stone. It's a lot of scenes, still shots, with voiceovers and ambient music. It lacks engagement, lacks uniqueness. I'm just bored out of my mind. I'm gonna fall asleep. I I don't care how profound it is. At a certain point, you gotta draw the line, even for experimental films. Like, what's the point of premiering it if it's gonna be boring? Flower Show. I know this was a little less boring, but I fell asleep with this one as well. Um, well, let's see the description. Beautiful and slightly disturbing hand-drawn animation in which multiple generations of women face different expectations. Yeah, well, now I look bad because it's a feminist film. I mean, yeah, I could see that. And there's definitely the concept of what do you call it? Like self-inflicted, like sexism, where I remember two female characters where one female character was more dominant than the other, and like forcing certain expectations on another female. So there's that, internalized, there's self-inflicted, internalized sexism, which is a common theme with common theme. I talk about it like a story, but it's real life. It's also common with a lot of other bigotries. And maybe this is not the best thing, but this criticism of men, I feel that King Baby is another representation of that. I mean, I I don't want to compare the amount of bigotry getting. I don't want make this like competition between like women and men. Like making a competition in my head, but the whole point is that's bad in itself. It's not supposed to be a competition. It's that we're all getting shit. But it's that internalization, though. And King Baby's internalization. And Flower Show was showing there's also, sexism from men to women. But there's also internalization shown in that film as well, if I remember correctly. So yeah. But it's just the execution, just something about it just made me fall asleep. Maybe the color palette's just a little too pastel, a little too desaturated. Is it desaturated or tinted? I'm not sure. I'm gonna slowly start to learn more about color theory and stuff, but it just it was hard. It was hard for me. It wasn't as engaging, unfortunately. And then Void. Now this was engaging uh, possibly because of my bias as well. But it was more, it wasn't a lot of scenery with voiceovers. It wasn't, it was people interacting with each other. The, there wasn't any fourth wall break. It was within the story. That, I guess, sort of helps with engagement. But I know the whole point of experimental film is to go beyond that convention. But anyways, Void is in this unconventional horror. Things around Asagi become increasingly absurd after her friend dies. Yeah, so I see it as a form of grief. Well, grief is step one of understanding the film. On the next level, you gotta think about, it's about repression as well, which, I mean, they explicitly explain. Repression, suppression, repression, oppression, suppression of negative emotions, and how that might be exploded through void, through death. It is an absurd film. Now that I think about it, I wonder if a lot of the deaths that were shown in the film were also illusions, that the protagonist Asagi was seeing or thinking. Maybe she wanted everyone else to die because everyone was so apathetic towards her friend's death. That could be, it's hard to say. It's interesting. I would say Void, something to think about. I've seen this in other Japanese films where when the director wants to explain the theme very explicitly, they just have two people talking about it, like dialogue, and oftentimes it's two people that are not really important to the film, or in this case, completely like unrelated strangers that we only see them once and never again. It seems a bit cheap, but it kind of works. I'd rather not have it as just another voiceover, to be honest. And it wouldn't make sense for the protagonist to be, monologuing, internally dialoguing the concept, because she's not aware. So yeah, this competition, Void was interesting. Everything else, Flower Show, kind of, but mostly everything else is not that. I would say it wasn't that engaging. I can't really say if it was that good, because also I did fall asleep, so maybe I missed on the profound aspects of those films. And then the night on that day, I also watched Rachel McLean's Pop Culture Potpourri. No. Potpourri. A mixture of dried petals and spices placed in a bowl to perfume a room. Potpourri. I thought it was just some random word. A mixture. Pop culture mixture. Aromatic mixture. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna start off with The Lion and the Unicorn. This was the one film I kind of fell asleep and I found it boring, only because it was about post-colonialism of UK, which I don't have that much, knowledge on UK history and all that, so I just didn't understand that much, and it was a lot more calmer compared to the other four films. Um, like what uh, it does get cheap too quickly, but what I kind of like about McLean's style is it's so over the top, like it's the over the topness, you know. It's vomit inducing almost. That's what I like. When Germs, Hit Me Baby, Over the Rainbow. Um, I just realized Over the Rainbow. I mean, yeah. I'm gonna talk about it in general. Um, well, okay. Also, Hit Me Baby, I didn't really understand because it was about Britney, and I know it's probably a metaphor that explains more about um, America, Western culture, consumerism in general. Probably also about celebrity worship, all that, or celebrity culture. Um, but I didn't get it because it kept quoting this interview that I didn't really listen to. I think I listened to it once, but I don't really remember. It was about Britney maybe becoming a mother or something. I don't know. I don't know much of Britney Spears' like history. I know she went crazy or something, but that's about it. Or people say she went crazy. I don't know. So what I really liked was Duck, Germs, and Over the Rainbow. Germs was like there's nothing really to complain about Germs. It was a fun and a very clear cut film of um, the advertisement, you know, and the constant bombardment of it, but it's done in such a humorous way. I really like Germs. It's like one of the only films I watched during this festival that I'm very confident in saying it's solid. Or as an audience, I feel very confident in what I watched. Um, because I mean, it's easy to understand, but it's also fun. It was a funny film. It was another. McLean was only the other films that are experimental but still humorous. Over the Rainbow was pretty good too. It's so surreal, so absurd, and I really like the costume design and makeup. It's vomit inducing, you know. And then on top of that, it's green screen. It's all the dialogues are, voiced from other medium. Um, there's a homemadiness. I like it. Um, and then Duck. Um, conceptually, it's very relevant because it's using AI art to talk about reality, you know, and talking about how internet has radicalized our perception of reality because of the echo chamber it's able to create. But at the same time, it's not just that. It's just like generally, it's so hard to decipher what's real and not anymore. Um, it's a good film, and there's also humor. Um, I don't know. It's just good. I like the whole idea of the what's the saying? If it walks like a dog, talks like a duck. If it walks like if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, then just maybe a duck. Right. So it's a way of duck test. So duck test is a duck test, a form of abductive reasoning, usually expression as if it looks in the simple as that. A person can identify an unknown subject by observing that subject's habitual characteristics. So it's a abductive test, reasoning, that is not relevant anymore because of AI. Well, it hasn't been really relevant in a long time, but or it has never been relevant. But what at least AI does is it reintroduces and questions that sort of reasoning, but also it makes it even harder, you know. And the future of our like perception of reality is even gonna get harder to decipher what's real and not. Even though there's already that layer of it's not real. Um, well, yeah. Reality and truth, I guess. Maybe less to do with what's real, but what's true. Um, it's a difficult thing to think about. And I like the twist that the aliens are actually ducks, you know, and their way of controlling reality, which is represented through the headline of a newspaper. Very fascinating. Very funny way of taking a very um, timely topic with AI art. Um, yeah, I just wish I've watched more spy films, especially the classic ones, so I could appreciate more. Just I only really know one or two actors, and then including plus Marilyn Monroe, but one or two actors who were the agent, you know. But it's fine. But I like the way they awkwardly move. It was an interesting film. Um, and then the day after that, Isblink. I'm not gonna. Well, first it was called Finding Shelter, about two films. Isblink was a really short one. It was about a meticulous study of how climate change is reshaping the Norwegian island of Svalbard. Yeah, it's about climate change. It's about um, what's the word? It's another compilation of still images, ambient sound, voiceover. Just I don't care how important it is as a film. It's not interesting. It's just shit. A Man Imagine. Now this was more interesting. About Lloyd, a homeless man in Canada. Um, I don't really know what to say about this. Just I mean, it's sad, but is saying sad sort of I mean, it is sad, but also the interviewee, Lloyd, um, if I'm being honest, he's not uh he's not like completely trustable person, not like he's evil, but in terms of like the things he talks about in his life, um, or maybe like his past, about his parents just getting killed. It just seems so absurd. Maybe it is real, and maybe that's why he's so fucked. But no, it starts off with like him saying, "I'm not gonna say who killed it, who killed my parents," but then after they question, he just casually says the name of the person who killed his parents. And at first he says his parents got killed, was sent to the forest. But then later he says his parents were taken by a car and he doesn't know where they went. So can you see like this? You don't know if the retelling is if it's true, you know. I mean, Lloyd's probably being genuine, but it's hard. And he's constantly smoking, took drugs. He's just on the road. And he talks about this conflicting feeling of being remembered after he dies. Like, he doesn't want people to remember him because he had a shit life, but also he wants people to remember him because, you know, he likes people. He likes talking to people. It's real, you know. And from an execution level, the thing is, films like Isblink provides the thing it's trying to convey is also serious and it's sad, but it's just done in such a boring way. You need to appeal to emotion in some way, and a still image, ambient sound, and voiceover is not. It's honest, and honesty in art is really, really important. But there has to be other ways to execute to seem more engaging, which Man Imagine did a better job. Because it's focused on one man, it's focused on his struggles, his life, his daily routine, and his perspective on life. It's very real. It's a lot easier to feel empathetic, and it just, for me, you know, I am in a completely different life, but I can see myself becoming that because of the certain issues I have where I could completely self-destruct and live that way. So it hit harder for me, to be honest. So Man Imagined, one of the better ones. The thing is, it is a longer film, and what I've noticed, you know, with A Spoiled Rain, King Baby, Man Imagine, and what I'm gonna talk about next, the longer films do sort of have an upper hand because there's a lot more possibility, I guess, to do things. I get it with short ones. If you want to convey a lot of stuff, it's really hard to make it into a story, make it do like a whole process. The easiest way is to, you know, explain, do a voiceover. But just, it misses the point of film, I feel. Because something like that, you don't have to do it on a medium of film. There are other ways of doing the exactly same thing. I mean, there is, you know, the still image, ambient sound. I understand that provides, you know, that conveys something, like the voiceovers, the emotions behind that. Having an actual person's voice that does have a quality that a lot of other mediums cannot replicate. But it's just too close to an essay. You know. No, that's what I feel with Isblink. And then finally, what I watched yesterday, A Journey of Shadow. Resynderschatten. A digital Polyfilm, or is it what can I say? Um, it's surreal. It's confusing. But what I like about this film is the more you watch, your brain kind of shifts into understanding the logic of this world, because it's done in a way to repeat a lot of the same things, not like in a lazy way, but there's a lot of common motifs. Yeah, it uses a lot of common motifs through as objects, as phenomenons. Um, so you kind of understand what's going on and kind of see through the perspective of that surreal world's logic. That being said, though, it was still confusing. Um, but at the end of the day, I find it as the one of the most common theme was how wherever this protagonist goes, there's destruction. Either by accident, either on purpose. It's more than just climate change, you know. It's just our existence is like to destroy, to take, to create this ripple effect of unintended consequences. Um, it's honestly a sad film. Because even the violence that the protagonist does on the chimp or the partner, there's something about it that seems uncontrollable. Like, it doesn't excuse the protagonist, but it just seems like the person doesn't have control over their emotions. They just get angry. And they react so quickly and so violently, you know. To me, this film was basically the lack of control we have over destruction of ourselves, each other, to nature, and our surroundings, you know. I guess possibly this film is very interpretive. Um, the more I think about it, I kind of almost want to cry thinking about this film. I really like this film. I think I gotta watch it again. I'll find a way to watch this. And now I'm thinking about, is this better than A Spoiling Rain? Because if I'm being honest, Spoiling Rain is at the top. But this is a close competitor. This is hard. Um, the thing is, I'm thinking about Journey of Shadow as being slightly above because it's more experimental. But I don't know if the inherentness of experimentality of a film should be a quality in of itself. I feel like I just used very redundant phrasing there, but um it is a sad film. the way at the end the protagonist puts on the prosthetic, I feel one way was trying to convey that all the damage it did to, or they did to their partner, was basically them hurting themselves, doing damage to themselves, sort of. But then that's not really. I think there's more to it, but that's how I see it. But then it's also already kind of displayed by how much the protagonist is kind of dwindled down after killing their partner. Oh, the protagonist didn't kill the partner. The partner committed suicide. Yeah, there's a lot of committing suicide. This one, what else? The Spoiling Rain, Void. Yeah. Hmm. Well, okay. Oh, I can start with elimination. So, Old Film Phillies, Water Hazards, Darrow. The competition, I'm gonna say none of these were that good. Spoiling Rain, King Baby. Damn it, like, I kind of want to put King Baby to the top as well, but it's just a concept I do not like. So I'm gonna say no to King Baby as well. Delirium, Coral, and In Dreams. In Dreams is gonna be top. Competition 3, Void. Maybe my tops Void would be the bottom one. McLean. I would say Duck, Germs, On the Rainbow. The thing is, Germs is solid, but it's not that big of a deal. Like, we know the shit with ads already in consumerism. Over the Rainbow's really surreal. It's really hard to think. Over the Rainbow or Duck. One of the funniest scenes in Over the Rainbow is I explained it last time. A guy finds a severed head, and this lady without the head comes by, and it's like this whole horror scene. She puts on her head, and then starts doing Black Eyed Peas dance with some background dancers. I really like that. Fuck. Duck or Over the Rainbow? The Duck made more sense. And it also had good humor. I'll say Duck. Duck Over the Rainbow, Germs. Yeah. Man Imagine was good. Spoiled Rain. Spoiling Rain. Yeah, I will say a Spoiling Rain 1. Journey of Shadow 2, and then Duck or In Dreams? I'll say Duck 3, In Dreams 4, or maybe Over the Rainbow is better than In Dreams. Yeah. Over the Duck, okay. A Spoiling Rain, Journey of Shadow, Duck, Over the Rainbow, In Dreams. In Dreams, In Dreams, A Man Imagined, Coral. Oh, Film, nah. Yeah, Oh, Film Feliz, Void, Water Hazard, Sterile. I think that's my pick. So that's 20. I didn't watch everything, but based on my list, 2024 Film Festival. Top pick: A Spoiling Rain, Journey of Shadow, Duck, Over the Rainbow, In Dreams, A Man Imagined, what did I say after that? Man Imagined, Coral, right? Coral. Oh, Film. Coral. Void. Oh, Film Phillies. Coral. I would put Void above. Coral, Void, Oh, Film Phillies, Water Hazard, Sterile. Or. Yeah. That's it. Well, that was a fun recap. That's it. Other than that, I didn't do anything today. I got into all the mods 9. God, Minecraft's so good. Well, modern Minecraft is really good. I'm honestly tempted to just play that right now. Possibly. I made some pasta today. I got some pasta from my dad. Just, I don't know what the hell the pasta is made out of. It tastes way too healthy, fibery. It's fine, I guess. I got a lot of pesto. Yeah, this pesto jar. It was just randomly there in the wrong location, but I was looking for pesto. But I couldn't find the rest of the big jars. Usually, the pesto is small jars, but there was one big jar, so I was really lucky. So I have that pesto. But other than that, I really want to make a frying station. I'll do that tomorrow. I didn't buy the cup as well, which is unfortunate, so I gotta buy the cup. And then the delivery guy who's, the delivery cup guy or girl, whatever. The courier, DHL, fucked me up, and the seller is not responding, so I gotta contact the seller. Oh, not seller, Amazon. Well, and then I guess I'll report the seller. Yeah. Hopefully I get a refund. God, it's so tedious. I wish Amazon delivery would just deliver to the pickup points if they miss me, you know. Um, or I'm thinking maybe next time I'll get some sort of a sheet in front of the house, and I'm just gonna tell the delivery people to put it underneath the sheet. Um, yeah, that's it. Okay, I'm done.